What if the man destined to become King of England quietly decided that Meghan Markle should never again be addressed as a duchess? Imagine the ripple effect of such a move. The headlines, the fury, the public debates raging across breakfast tables, news studios, and social media feeds. It sounds like something torn straight out of a television drama, doesn't it? Yet behind closed doors, sources close to Kensington Palace whisper that Prince William, once cautious and measured, has reached his breaking point. He is ready to act, and this time, it's personal. Think about it. Titles are not just fancy decorations sewn onto history books. In the monarchy, titles are currency. They open doors, command respect, and shape legacies. And Meghan, despite stepping away from royal duties, still walks into rooms draped in the glow of being the Duchess of Sussex. She still markets herself as a royal. She still leans on the prestige of the crown, even while living thousands of miles away. Isn't it ironic? She rejects the institution, yet clings to the identity it gave her. And now, William is asking the question the world has whispered for years. Should Meghan still be allowed to carry that name? Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. The tension didn't erupt overnight. It's been simmering, quietly building, like a storm cloud refusing to move off the horizon. Since Megxit, the fractures in the royal family have deepened with every interview, every documentary, every carefully curated PR stunt. The image of unity, once so carefully protected, has been shattered. But in the center of it all stands William, the brother left behind, the heir shouldering a 1,000-year-old institution, the future king who knows that if the monarchy falls, history will point to him. Can he really allow Meghan Markle to continue capitalizing on royal titles while publicly defying the crown? Now, let's pause here and ask, what exactly pushed William to this point? Was it a single explosive moment? A slow drip of insults and betrayals? Or perhaps something much deeper, an instinct to defend not just his father's reign, but his own children's future? Consider this: George, Charlotte, and Louis will inherit the monarchy's legacy. How can William teach them about duty and sacrifice if Meghan is seen parading titles like trophies, divorced from responsibility? The hypocrisy is too glaring to ignore. And for William, that hypocrisy may very well be the last straw. Picture the scene inside Kensington Palace on a quiet evening. William, Kate, and a trusted advisor sitting around a polished wooden table. The room dimly lit, tension so thick it could be cut with a knife. William's voice is low but sharp. It cannot go on like this. The monarchy's name is not a brand to be exploited. Kate nods. The advisor scribbles notes. Outside, the public has no idea. But inside, a decision is forming that could redefine modern royal history. But let's rewind for a moment. Why does this story matter right now? Because titles are more than words. They carry symbolism that stretches back centuries. The Duchess of Sussex isn't just Meghan's name. It is a piece of England's history, tied to its dukedoms, its land, and its tradition. To strip it away is to make a statement not only about her, but about the monarchy's line in the sand. This isn't gossip. This is about the crown reclaiming its authority. And it's happening at a time when public trust in the royals has already been shaken. William's move isn't just about Meghan. It's about saving the monarchy itself from crumbling under the weight of scandal. Now, imagine the public reaction. Some will cheer. Finally, they'll say, the monarchy is standing firm. Others will rage. How cruel. How ungrateful. Meghan deserves her dignity. And then there are those who will simply watch, fascinated, as this Shakespearean drama unfolds in real time. No matter the side, one thing is certain. William's decision will divide opinion across the globe. And he knows it. Here's a surprising fact. Stripping a royal of their titles is not unheard of. History is littered with examples of disgraced aristocrats losing their honors. In 1917, King George V even restricted titles during wartime, severing ties with German relatives to protect the monarchy's reputation. Meghan's case, however, is different. She hasn't broken laws or committed treason. Her crime, in William's eyes, is one of betrayal, disrespect, and exploitation. But is that enough to warrant such a drastic step? That's the question William is determined to answer, and fast. But here's the irony. Meghan likely never imagined her titles would hang by a thread. When she married Harry, those words, Duke and Duchess of Sussex, were symbols of triumph. Proof that she, the American actress, had conquered the world's most exclusive institution. And yet, just a few short years later, those very titles may be the rope by which her public image swings. Can you see the contradiction? She wanted freedom from royal duty, but not from royal prestige. She wanted independence, yet still leans on the crown's shadow. William sees this contradiction not as harmless branding, but as a threat. And in his mind, threats must be eliminated. Now let's think about timing. Why now? Why not years ago, when Megxit was fresh? Because William knows the stakes are higher than ever. His father, King Charles, is battling health struggles. His own ascension feels closer with each passing day. The monarchy cannot enter a new era with loose ends dangling in California. If William doesn't act now, when will he? And if he doesn't, what message does that send about leadership? These questions are not just rhetorical. They're the very questions rattling through William's mind as he steels himself for the decision. But here's where things get even more intriguing. William's move isn't only about discipline. It's about setting precedent. If Meghan can step away, criticize the institution, build a Hollywood empire, and still enjoy the privileges of being Duchess, what stops others from doing the same? What stops Harry, or any future royal, from cherry-picking duty and honor? To William, the monarchy is not a costume one wears for convenience. It is a lifelong oath. And in his eyes, Meghan has broken hers. And so, the stage is set. The future King of England is sharpening his stance. His sister-in-law, living in California luxury, is unaware, or perhaps defiantly aware, of the storm brewing across the Atlantic. The press doesn't have the full story. The public doesn't know the private conversations. But soon, they will. And when they do, it will ignite one of the most explosive chapters in royal history. But what, exactly, pushed William over the edge? Was it Meghan's latest PR stunt? Was it whispers about her next big media move? Or was it something far more personal, something said, something done, that cut William so deeply he could no longer ignore it? That, my friends, is where our story truly begins. Because what comes next is not just about titles. It's about loyalty. It's about betrayal. It's about the future of the monarchy itself. And as we move forward, you'll discover the shocking trigger that forced William's hand. A trigger so powerful that it turned frustration into action, hesitation into resolve. But what came next would change everything, and no one saw it coming. It all began with a single, unforgettable moment. A public appearance that seemed, on the surface, perfectly ordinary. The cameras flashed, the crowds cheered, the royal wave went up. Yet for those who knew how to read the signs, Prince William's face told a very different story. His jaw was clenched tighter than usual, his smile practiced but strained, and his eyes, always so careful, always so controlled, were brimming with something he usually kept hidden: fury. What had Meghan Markle done this time to push him so close to the edge? Here's the thing about the royals. They rarely reveal their emotions in public. Every expression is rehearsed, every gesture calibrated. But in that moment, William's mask cracked. It was fleeting, but it was real. And for those paying attention, it was a signal, a warning that something monumental was about to unfold. Was this the moment the world would later point to and say, that's when it began? That's when William decided Meghan had gone too far. But what caused this reaction? To understand, we need to rewind the clock just a few days before that public event. Meghan had once again stepped into the spotlight, launching her carefully packaged Netflix project. It wasn't just another show. It was a subtle yet calculated reminder that she was, in her own words, still a duchess. The marketing campaign was peppered with references to her title, her royal wedding, her place in history. Every clip, every interview, every teaser screamed one thing: Meghan was selling the royal brand without living the royal life. And William saw it. He saw it all. Imagine being in William's shoes. Your entire life has been dedicated to preserving the dignity of the monarchy. You've sacrificed privacy, endured scandals, carried the weight of expectation. And then, thousands of miles away, your sister-in-law, who once promised to serve that same institution, turns the family name into a marketing hook. How would you feel? Angry? Betrayed? Powerless? William felt all three. But the real trigger wasn't just Meghan's use of her title. It was the timing. At that very moment, King Charles was grappling with health concerns, and the monarchy was entering one of its most fragile chapters in decades. Public confidence was wavering. The world was watching, questioning whether this thousand-year-old institution could survive modern pressures. And Meghan, knowingly or unknowingly, poured gasoline on the fire by presenting herself as a royal voice in America, detached from responsibility, yet dripping with privilege. For William, it was unforgivable. Behind the scenes, the whispers grew louder. Advisors began reporting to William that Meghan's name was being plastered across Hollywood deals, product launches, and charity initiatives, all tied to her Duchess title. A single phrase kept circling back to him. She's monetizing the monarchy. It wasn't just perception. It was fact. And William knew that perception could kill. Once the monarchy is seen as a brand for sale, it ceases to be sacred. And if it ceases to be sacred, what is left? Let's not forget, William has seen this pattern before. He watched his mother, Diana, devoured by the media, her private struggles turned into public spectacle. He swore never to let history repeat itself. But now, watching Meghan weaponize the very thing his mother cherished, the dignity of royal status, was like a blade twisting in an old wound. The irony was unbearable. Diana had fought for her voice. Meghan was fighting to own the family's name. The two battles couldn't be more different. Yet Meghan positioned herself as a modern Diana. For William, that was the ultimate insult. Picture the royal household in those days. Advisors moving briskly through corridors, papers in hand, whispering updates about Meghan's latest moves. William, normally composed, snapping, "Enough. I don't want excuses, I want solutions." Kate, steady as always, urging patience but quietly admitting she too was tired of the endless drama. Can you feel the tension? Can you sense the breaking point? Because this is where the seeds of William's decision were planted. The public, of course, saw none of this. They saw William attending charity events, shaking hands, smiling for cameras. But the smile didn't reach his eyes. And when Meghan's Netflix campaign coincided with one of William's most important public duties, a remembrance service honoring fallen soldiers, it felt like a deliberate slap in the face. While William bowed his head in silence, Meghan's team blasted out glossy footage of her as the Duchess of Sussex, living her best California life. Two worlds, two narratives, one crown, and William could no longer stomach the contradiction. Here's a surprising detail that rarely makes headlines. Meghan's use of her Duchess title isn't simply a matter of personal branding. It carries legal and diplomatic implications. Every time her title is invoked in connection with commercial ventures, it muddies the waters of royal neutrality. Imagine a foreign leader seeing Duchess Meghan attached to a Netflix show. Is that Meghan the private citizen, or Meghan, a representative of the crown? That confusion is dangerous. It compromises the monarchy's stance of political neutrality and opens the door to accusations of corruption. And William, meticulous by nature, understood the risks all too well. So when he appeared at that public event with clenched teeth and piercing eyes, it wasn't just frustration. It was resolve. Resolve to end the charade. Resolve to protect the monarchy from what he saw as slow erosion by Hollywood glitz. Resolve to confront the elephant in the room. Meghan Markle cannot be both an ex-royal and an eternal duchess. One identity must give way. But here's the twist. William knew this wouldn't be simple. Stripping someone of a royal title is not like changing a job title at an office. It's messy. It's political. It involves parliament, legal advisors, and the Queen's, or now, the King's, approval. It risks public backlash. It risks making Meghan a martyr in the eyes of her supporters. Yet William believed the cost of inaction was far greater. Better to endure the storm now than let the monarchy rot quietly under Meghan's shadow. And so, as the flashbulbs popped and William's expression hardened, history quietly shifted. He had made up his mind. He would fight to block Meghan from using royal titles once and for all. He would push the institution to draw a line in the sand. He would risk criticism, division, even personal strain with his brother. Because in William's view, the survival of the monarchy was worth the sacrifice. The question now is, how did he begin? How do you take on not just your sister-in-law, but the powerful machinery behind her? The PR teams, the media allies, the global fan base. William knew he couldn't do it alone. He would need allies, strategy, and timing. And so he began to gather his circle, preparing for a battle that would play out in private halls and public headlines alike. But what happened next shocked even those closest to him. William's private circle, those most loyal to him, didn't all agree. Some feared the backlash. Some feared Harry's wrath. Some feared the monarchy wasn't strong enough to weather the storm. And in the middle of those hushed debates, a leak emerged. A letter. A whisper of William's intentions. A crack in the palace walls. And once that crack appeared, there was no going back. The world would soon learn that William wasn't just angry. He was ready to act. But before the plan could unfold, Meghan herself made a move so bold, so calculated, it forced William to accelerate his timeline. A move that would pit Hollywood against Buckingham Palace in a battle neither side could afford to lose. What was Meghan's move? And why did it convince William that stripping her of royal titles was no longer optional, but inevitable? That is where we head next. Because the story doesn't end with William's trigger. It begins there. And what Meghan did next? No one saw it coming. The monarchy was built on duty. Centuries of service, sacrifice, and silence. You are born into a role, and you serve it until your dying breath. You don't get to quit. You don't get to renegotiate. You don't get to cash out. That's the unwritten contract every royal accepts from the cradle. But Meghan Markle? She saw the contract differently. To her, a title wasn't a sacred oath. It was an asset, something to polish, to package, to market, to monetize. And that's where the collision began. Meghan's Hollywood brand versus the crown's ancient authority. Ask yourself this. Can the two ever truly coexist? Can a duchess also be an influencer? Can the language of loyalty and duty share the same stage as Netflix deals and Spotify exclusives? The answer, in William's mind, was simple: absolutely not. To him, Meghan's approach wasn't just disrespectful. It was corrosive. Every time she called herself the Duchess of Sussex, while pitching a project, it chipped away at the monarchy's dignity. And every chip brought the whole institution closer to collapse. Let's paint the picture. In California, Meghan's brand machine is relentless. Glossy PR campaigns, carefully staged photographs, phrases like modern royal, courageous truth teller, and Duchess of Sussex sprinkled like confetti across headlines. It's Hollywood 101. Craft a persona, sell the story, dominate the narrative. Meghan was no longer just Meghan. She was the Duchess turned global icon, standing on a platform built not by Hollywood, but by Windsor. Without the royal connection, she would have been another actress fighting for screen time. With it, she was a brand the world couldn't ignore. But here's the contradiction that drove William mad. Meghan rejected the monarchy publicly. She called it suffocating, toxic, even cruel. And yet, privately, she clung to its symbols like a lifeline. She left the royal stage, but she kept the costume. How could she call herself a victim of the crown while profiting from its shine? How could she walk away from duty but continue to cash in on the dignity of a duchess? To William, the hypocrisy was unbearable. And it wasn't just the hypocrisy, it was the danger. Because Meghan wasn't operating in isolation. She was building an empire. Netflix, Spotify, books, podcasts, brand endorsements. Every move strategically tied to her royal identity. Without the Duchess label, her projects risked being just another celebrity side hustle. With it, they were global news. And with every headline, Meghan blurred the line between monarchy and commerce. She wasn't just branding herself. She was branding the crown. And the crown had no control over it. Think of it this way. The monarchy thrives on mystique. Distance. A sense of being above the noise of ordinary life. The moment it becomes a marketing tool, it loses its magic. It becomes like any other brand, competing for clicks, views, and sales. And when that happens, why should the public respect it? Why should taxpayers fund it? William understood this danger intimately. He knew that if Meghan turned Duchess into a logo, the crown itself would become a commodity. And commodities can be bought, sold, and discarded. Now, let's not pretend Meghan didn't understand this. She did. She's media savvy, ambitious, and fiercely strategic. She knew the value of her title, even if she downplayed it. She knew that the word Duchess attached to her name elevated every project from a personal endeavor to a royal event. And she wasn't shy about using it. But here's the irony. The more she used the title, the less royal she appeared. Because real royals don't advertise their royalty. They live it. Meghan flipped the script, and William hated it. So what was the breaking point? It wasn't just the Netflix show. It was the optics. William saw headlines calling Meghan a trailblazing duchess, while the monarchy struggled to keep public support at home. He saw the Sussexes compared to Diana, their projects framed as brave truth-telling while the crown was painted as cold and outdated. Every interview Meghan gave, every subtle jab at the institution, made William's blood boil. Because this wasn't just a branding exercise, it was a branding war. Meghan's brand versus the monarchy's brand. And the stakes were survival. Here's a surprising fact. Palace aides reportedly flagged dozens of instances where Meghan's title was used in ways that blurred legal boundaries. Endorsements that seemed too commercial. Projects that leaned too heavily on her duchess status. Each one documented. Each one raising alarms. But what could William do? He wasn't king yet. He couldn't unilaterally act. All he could do was watch as Meghan's star rose in California while the monarchy's aura dimmed in London. Until, that is, he decided he wouldn't just watch. He would act. And let's not forget Harry in all this. Because Meghan's brand wasn't built alone. Harry was right there beside her. But here's the irony. Harry didn't need to push the royal angle. He is royal. His bloodline speaks for itself. Meghan, on the other hand, depended on the title. Without it, she was just Meghan Markle again. And that's what made William furious. He saw his brother's wife holding on to something she hadn't earned anymore, using it to build a platform that directly contradicted the very family she had abandoned. Could he really sit back and let that happen? Could he allow his mother's legacy, his grandmother's sacrifices, his father's fragile reign to be reduced to hashtags and product launches? The answer came in whispers, in late-night meetings, in conversations with trusted allies. William began asking hard questions. What are the legal boundaries here? Can titles be revoked? What precedent exists? Advisors scrambled to provide answers. Some urged caution. After all, stripping Meghan could backfire. But William wasn't looking for caution. He was looking for clarity. He wanted to know if Meghan's brand could be stopped before it consumed the monarchy whole. But here's where things take an even darker turn. Meghan's PR team wasn't blind. They knew William was watching. They knew the palace was rattled. And rather than pull back, they doubled down. More interviews. More brand deals. More references to the Duchess of Sussex. It was as if Meghan was daring William to act, testing the limits of what the monarchy would tolerate. And William, though seething inside, played the long game. He knew every move Meghan made built his case. Every headline she generated became evidence in his argument that the crown had to intervene. And so, the stage was set for confrontation. Meghan's brand and William's monarchy were on a collision course. The question was no longer if, but when. How long could William hold back before his fury boiled over? How long could Meghan push before the palace snapped? Every day the tension grew thicker, heavier, impossible to ignore. And then came the whisper, the leak. A letter suggesting that William was exploring ways to block Meghan from using her royal titles. It wasn't confirmation. It wasn't official. But it was enough. Enough to ignite speculation. Enough to rattle Meghan's team. Enough to prove that William's fury wasn't just words. It was action. For the first time, Meghan's brand faced a real threat. A threat from the very institution she had built it on. But what happened when that whisper reached Meghan? How did she respond when she realized William wasn't bluffing anymore? The answer shocked even her most loyal allies. Because Meghan didn't retreat. She didn't soften. She launched a counterattack so bold, so audacious, it forced William to take the battle public. And that, my friends, is where we go next. Because when Meghan's Hollywood brand collided head-on with the crown's ancient power, the fallout was explosive. And what Meghan did to defend her brand, no one saw it coming. Every leader has an inner circle, a small, carefully chosen group of voices they can trust when the noise of the outside world grows deafening. For Prince William, that circle is smaller than most people realize. In fact, over the years, it has shrunk. Betrayals, leaks, shifting loyalties. All of it has taught him one painful lesson. Trust is rare in the palace. And when you're dealing with something as explosive as stripping Meghan Markle of her titles, you don't throw the question into a crowded room. You whisper it to the few people who know the stakes, who understand the weight, and who will not flinch when the crown itself trembles. Picture this, a winter evening at Kensington Palace. The corridors are quiet, the press long gone. the world outside unaware of the conversations taking place behind those heavy doors. William sits at the head of a polished oak table. To his left, Kate, composed, measured, her eyes sharp but her tone calm. To his right, a senior advisor, gray-haired and battle-tested, the kind of man who has survived decades of royal storms. In front of them, a thin stack of papers, memos, legal briefs, and opinion polls. This isn't dinner conversation. This is strategy. This is war planning. William begins quietly. She's using the Duchess title in ways that put the crown at risk. His words hang in the air, not shouted, but weighted. Everyone in the room knows exactly who he means. Meghan. He doesn't need to say her name. He never does. The silence that follows is heavy, broken only by Kate's steady voice. The question is not whether it bothers us. The question is whether it endangers the monarchy. Simple, clear, surgical. That's Kate's role, to strip the noise away and bring the discussion back to the heart of the matter. The advisor clears his throat. Your Royal Highness, we must tread carefully. Removing titles is possible, yes. History shows us it has been done. But the optics could be catastrophic. He pauses, scanning William's face. She will play the victim. The press will eat it up. And Harry, he doesn't finish the sentence. He doesn't need to. Everyone in the room knows Harry's reaction could set fire to the fragile threads still holding the family together. Now pause here and imagine yourself in William's position. What would you do? Would you risk global headlines calling you a heartless brother? Would you endure weeks of Meghan sitting across from talk show hosts, painting herself as a woman bullied out of her title? Or would you act anyway, because inaction feels worse? This is the dilemma that gnaws at William as he leans back in his chair, fingers pressed against his temple. He doesn't want drama. He doesn't crave attention. But leadership isn't about comfort. Leadership is about survival. And for William, survival means the monarchy must come first, even above family. Here's a surprising detail that many overlook. William's private circle doesn't always agree with him. Some of his advisors are pragmatic, urging him to let Meghan keep her titles but starve them of relevance by refusing to acknowledge her. Others, however, share William's fury, warning that every day Meghan continues to call herself Duchess, the monarchy's authority erodes just a little more. It's a chess game. Do you move boldly and risk a counterattack? Or do you wait, hoping your opponent will falter on their own? William has never been a man to wait passively. And then there's Kate. Never loud, never dramatic, but always steady. In these meetings, her words carry enormous weight. She reminds William that their children will inherit whatever mess they leave unresolved. We must think of George, Charlotte, and Louis, she says softly. If we don't address this now, they'll grow up under the shadow of this chaos. Her words cut through William like a blade. Because she's right. This isn't just about him and Meghan. It's about the future of his children, the next heirs, the continuation of the dynasty. As the discussion grows more intense, one advisor raises a historical example. In 1936, King Edward VIII gave up his throne to Mary Wallis Simpson. He was stripped of his titles, reduced in stature. The monarchy survived because lines were drawn. The same may be required now. The room falls silent at the comparison. Meghan as the modern Wallis. Harry as the modern Edward. History repeating itself in a cruel twist of fate. For William, the parallel is almost too neat to ignore. But here's the twist. Even within this private circle, cracks exist. Not everyone believes stripping Meghan of her titles is the best move. Some argue it will only fuel her brand further. The Duchess denied her titles becomes a headline that sells books, drives documentaries, and garners sympathy. Better, they argue, to let the titles remain but ensure they mean nothing in practice. William shakes his head. That is not enough. Titles are not costumes. You cannot wear them when it suits you and discard them when it doesn't. They either mean everything, or they mean nothing. And I will not let them mean nothing. The passion in his voice silences the room. This isn't just strategy. This is conviction. William is no longer debating. He's declaring. And in that declaration, his circle understands something profound. The heir to the throne is ready to cross a line his predecessors avoided. He is ready to risk the storm. Because for him, the alternative, letting Meghan redefine what royalty means, is far worse. But here's where things get even more complicated. The meeting doesn't end with consensus. It ends with a warning. One of William's closest confidants leans forward and says quietly, "If you pursue this, there will be leaks. There will be pushback. And once it begins, there is no going back. Are you prepared for that?" William doesn't answer right away. He stares at the papers in front of him, polls, reports, memos, then finally whispers, "Yes." A single word, but one that carries centuries of weight. And yet, even as William steels himself, the cracks his advisor warned of appear sooner than expected. A whisper, a hint, a rumor that William was exploring ways to curtail Meghan's use of her title slips into the press. At first, it's dismissed as gossip, but then more details emerge. Someone, somewhere, has leaked information from within William's private circle. Betrayal, from the very people he trusted most. Can you imagine the rage? Can you imagine the paranoia that must have spread through Kensington Palace as William realized even his inner circle was not airtight? This betrayal changes everything. Because if William cannot control his own circle, how can he control the narrative? How can he protect his plan from being twisted, exaggerated, or weaponized by Meghan's PR machine? He cannot. And so the battle shifts from private strategy to public spectacle faster than anyone in that oak-paneled room anticipated. And this is where the story takes its next dramatic turn. Because just as William's advisors scramble to contain the leaks, Meghan herself seizes the opportunity. Instead of retreating, she accelerates. She doubles down on her Duchess branding, launching a PR blitz designed not only to counter William, but to paint him as the aggressor. The chessboard is set. The pieces are moving. And William's decision to act is about to collide with Meghan's decision to fight back. But what did Meghan do in her counterattack that sent shockwaves through Buckingham Palace? What move did she make that forced William to stop strategizing in private and start preparing for battle in public? That is where we go next. Because when Meghan's Hollywood machine went to war with the palace, the results were more explosive than anyone could have imagined. And what Meghan did next would leave William stunned. Hollywood doesn't sleep. It doesn't wait. It doesn't hesitate. And Meghan Markle, for all her talk of stepping back from the limelight, has mastered the art of harnessing it. The moment whispers began swirling that William was preparing to challenge her right to the Duchess title, Meghan's response wasn't fear, wasn't retreat, wasn't even silence. It was acceleration. The Hollywood machine roared to life, polished, powerful, and impossible to ignore. Here's the thing. The monarchy thrives on secrecy, tradition, and silence. Meghan thrives on exposure, reinvention, and narrative control. One is built on centuries of ritual, the other on 21st century marketing. When the two collided, it was no contest in terms of speed. While William's advisors were drafting cautious memos and consulting legal texts, Meghan's PR team was crafting soundbites, booking interviews, and lining up glossy magazine spreads. The crown moved like a glacier. Meghan moved like wildfire. Think about it. In California, Meghan had everything at her fingertips: production studios, stylists, brand managers, celebrity allies, and an audience hungry for drama. Every leak about William's inner circle became fuel. Every rumor of titles being stripped became an opportunity. Meghan's team understood a simple truth: perception often outweighs reality. If the public believes Meghan is a wronged woman fighting back against a rigid monarchy, then in many ways, that becomes the reality. Facts become secondary. Emotions become primary. And Meghan knows how to work emotions like a violin. Take the carefully staged photographs. Meghan walking through lush gardens, framed in soft lighting, her children just out of focus. The perfect blend of vulnerability and strength. Or the polished interviews where she spoke not as a duchess demanding privilege, but as a mother, a woman, a survivor. Her words weren't accidental. They were crafted. Every pause rehearsed, every phrase tested. It was performance art, and it worked. Millions saw her as authentic. Millions believed she was being silenced. Millions were willing to defend her, titles or no titles. But here's the irony. The very machine that elevated Meghan was the exact thing that enraged William. Because while Meghan's PR blitz was dazzling, it was also deliberate exploitation of the crown's symbolism. Her interviews always circled back, subtly or directly, to her royal connection. The Duchess of Sussex was not just Meghan. It was a character in her new Hollywood narrative. And William, watching from London, could see what others couldn't. that the monarchy was being reduced to a marketing hook. Now let's step back for a second. What makes Meghan's Hollywood machine so effective? It's the fusion of entertainment and activism. She doesn't just promote shows. She ties them to causes. She doesn't just launch projects. She frames them as statements. It's smart. It's strategic. But it's also dangerous. Because when the Duchess title is attached to these projects, it blurs the line between personal advocacy and royal endorsement. Imagine the crown inadvertently appearing to endorse commercial campaigns, political stances, or even subtle digs at the family. That's not branding. That's subversion. And here's where the contradictions pile up. Meghan claims she wanted freedom from royal duty. Yet everything her Hollywood machine churns out reinforces her royal identity. Without the Duchess label, is she still newsworthy? Without the Duchess label, does Netflix still sign the same deals? Does Spotify still hand over millions? Does the public still care? Meghan knows the answer, and that's why she leans so heavily on the title. To William, it's proof she's not just living her truth. She's leveraging the monarchy. To Meghan, it's survival. Two perspectives, one battlefield. Now picture the atmosphere in Buckingham Palace when Meghan's counteroffensive began. William's advisors flipping through glossy magazines featuring the Duchess of Sussex. Social media trending with hashtags defending Meghan. Talk show hosts framing her as a woman under siege. Can you feel the fury in William's chest? The sense of losing control over his family's image? For someone raised to understand the monarchy as sacred, the transformation of Duchess into brand ambassador must have felt like sacrilege. And let's not forget Meghan's celebrity allies. Hollywood is a powerful network, and Meghan knew how to activate it. Friendly journalists, sympathetic talk show hosts, fellow celebrities eager to align themselves with her story, they became her unofficial army. Every time William's inner circle whispered about revoking her titles, a counter-narrative appeared in the press. Why is the monarchy so threatened by a strong woman? Why silence Meghan when she's finally found her voice? The narrative wasn't controlled from London. It was being rewritten from Los Angeles. But here's the shocking twist. Meghan's machine wasn't just about defending herself. It was about offense. Her PR team didn't merely react to William's whispers. They anticipated them. They framed her story as that of a woman standing tall against an outdated institution. They turned her into the protagonist of a modern fairy tale gone wrong. And in doing so, they painted William as the antagonist, the rigid prince who couldn't stomach a woman forging her own path. Fair? No. Effective? Absolutely. Now let's pause here and ask a hard question. Could William ever really win against Meghan's Hollywood machine? Think about the dynamics. The monarchy plays chess with centuries of tradition, moving carefully, one square at a time. Meghan plays poker with a deck stacked in her favor, bluffing, dazzling, and bending the rules. William has silence. Meghan has sound bites. William has advisors. Meghan has producers. Can the glacier ever truly outrun the wildfire? And yet, William didn't back down. If anything, Meghan's counteroffensive hardened his resolve. Because in his eyes, her moves proved his point. She wasn't letting the Duchess title go. She was doubling down, building her entire Hollywood identity around it. And that meant William couldn't just watch. He had to act. The question wasn't whether Meghan would fight back. The question was how far she would go, and how much damage she would do in the process. And then came the moment that turned whispers into roars. Meghan, in an interview filmed against a backdrop of California's sunshine, made a remark that sent Buckingham Palace into a frenzy. She spoke casually of her experiences as the Duchess of Sussex, weaving the title into her narrative like it was inseparable from her identity. For her supporters, it was inspiring. For William, it was infuriating. Because that simple phrase, broadcast to millions, proved that Meghan would never relinquish the title voluntarily. She would use it over and over, until it became synonymous not with duty, but with her personal brand. Inside the palace, jaws clenched, papers shuffled, phones buzzed, and in William's chest, something shifted. This wasn't just branding anymore. This was defiance. A direct challenge to the authority of the crown. And William knew that defiance could not go unanswered. The Hollywood machine had thrown down the gauntlet. Now it was up to the future king to decide whether to pick it up. But before William could move, another complication arose. Meghan's PR team had already prepared their next move, a bombshell announcement designed not just to defend her brand, but to elevate it to heights that would shake Buckingham Palace to its core. What was that announcement? And why did it terrify William's inner circle more than anything Meghan had done before? That's where we go next. Because when Meghan's Hollywood machine unveiled its boldest project yet, it wasn't just a brand move. It was an act of war, and the fallout would be devastating. Some ghosts never leave. For Prince William, his mother's ghost walks beside him every day. Diana is in the headlines that won't fade. She's in the photographs he avoids looking at too long. She's in the memories that still hurt when the world goes quiet. And now, she's in the shadow of every move Meghan Markle makes. Because whether Meghan intends it or not, her war with the monarchy drags Diana's story back into the spotlight. And for William, that's not just uncomfortable. It's unbearable. Let's rewind to the early 1990s. Diana was the most photographed woman in the world, her face splashed across tabloids, her personal struggles twisted into stories that sold millions. William was just a boy, watching helplessly as his mother was devoured by the press. He saw the flashing cameras. He heard the rumors. He felt the tension in every room she entered. Imagine being 12 years old and realizing your mother's pain is entertainment for the masses. Imagine the helpless rage of knowing you can't protect her. Those scars don't fade. They calcify. They define you. And they shape every decision you make as an adult. Now fast forward to the present. Meghan, another woman who married into the monarchy. Another woman who claims the institution silenced her. Another woman who frames herself as a victim of its coldness. The parallels are obvious. The press feeds on them. Headlines scream, modern Diana, and Diana's spirit lives in Meghan. But here's the thing. To William, those comparisons feel like a knife twisting in his chest. Because Diana's struggles were real, raw, and tragic. Meghan's struggles? William sees them as manufactured, dramatized, commodified. And the irony is almost too cruel to bear. The woman using Diana's playbook is the very one William believes is tearing the family apart. Ask yourself this. If you were William, could you stomach it? Could you endure watching your mother's legacy turned into a prop in Meghan's Hollywood brand? Could you accept interviews where Meghan casts herself as the torchbearer of Diana's pain? William can't. He won't. Because to him, Diana's memory isn't a marketing tool. It's sacred. And every time Meghan invokes Diana's shadow, William feels his resolve harden. This isn't just about titles anymore. It's about protecting his mother's name from being dragged into a battle she never chose. Consider one particularly haunting memory. The funeral in 1997. William and Harry, just boys, walking behind their mother's coffin as the world watched. The silence of that walk was deafening. William swore then, silently, privately, that he would protect the monarchy and his family from ever enduring that kind of public humiliation again. And now, decades later, as Meghan builds a media empire that thrives on royal conflict, William feels that vow echoing louder than ever. Meghan isn't just challenging the crown. She's reopening wounds that never healed. And yet, here's the contradiction that makes this story so gut-wrenching. Meghan probably sees herself as aligned with Diana, not against her. She positions herself as another woman silenced, another woman misunderstood, another woman crushed by the weight of royal tradition. In her mind, invoking Diana isn't exploitation, it's solidarity. But perception is everything, and in William's eyes, it's theft. Theft of his mother's story. Theft of his mother's dignity. Theft of the one thing he's tried to protect his entire life. Now let's talk about the children. Because for William, this isn't just about his past. It's about his future. George, Charlotte, Louis. They're growing up in a world where Diana's ghost is constantly resurrected. They hear whispers. They see the headlines. And one day, they'll read the full story. William doesn't want them to inherit a version of history where Diana's pain is rewritten to serve Meghan's narrative. He wants them to know their grandmother for who she really was, flawed, human, radiant, and utterly devoted to them, not as a stepping stone for someone else's brand. And this is where the emotional stakes climb even higher. Because William sees history repeating itself, but with one crucial difference. Diana was hounded by the press against her will. Meghan courts the press willingly. Diana wanted peace, but found none. Meghan thrives on visibility, attention, and spectacle. The parallels may sell magazines, but to William, they are a grotesque distortion. and he fears that if he doesn't act, his children will grow up under the same cloud of distortion, forced to navigate a monarchy that has been cheapened into a marketing prop. But let's not underestimate the irony here. William hates Meghan's use of Diana's memory. Yet the more he resists, the more Meghan's narrative gains traction. Because in Hollywood storytelling, resistance from the villain only makes the heroine more sympathetic. Every time William bristles at a Diana comparison, Meghan's team spins it as proof that the monarchy is threatened by her authenticity. It's a trap William knows too well, but one he cannot escape. And so he faces a cruel dilemma: stay silent and let Meghan dominate Diana's legacy, or fight back and risk making her stronger. Inside his private circle, the Diana question is the most sensitive of all. Advisors warn him not to touch it. You cannot be seen as competing with your mother's memory, one aide tells him. Kate, ever steady, urges caution. We must protect the children from this. But William, haunted by his vow at that funeral, can't let go. If I don't act, he whispers one night, what will be left of her legacy? What will they say about her in 20 years? That she was nothing more than a stepping stone for Meghan's empire? The words hang heavy in the air, unanswered. And then, just as William wrestles with these ghosts, Meghan delivers a blow that feels almost deliberate. A Netflix episode framed around Diana's struggles, spliced with Meghan's own experiences. The editing is slick, the parallels obvious, the message unmistakable. Meghan is the heir to Diana's story. For her fans, it's moving. For William, it's intolerable. He slams the report on the table, his voice tight with anger. She is rewriting history. She is taking my mother and turning her into a slogan. I will not allow it. The room falls silent. Kate places a hand on his arm. The advisors exchange nervous glances. They all know what this means. William is no longer motivated only by duty. He's motivated by grief. And grief can make a man unstoppable. But here's where the chapter takes its final, chilling turn. Because William's vow to protect Diana's legacy doesn't just harden his resolve against Meghan, it pushes him toward a confrontation with his brother. Harry, after all, has embraced Meghan's narrative. He, too, invokes Diana's memory, framing her as a guiding spirit in their decision to leave the monarchy. To Harry, Meghan and Diana are bound by fate. To William, that's a betrayal of the highest order. And in this clash of perspectives lies the deepest fracture yet. Two brothers, two versions of their mother's legacy, colliding head-on. And so the stage is set for heartbreak. Because if William pursues this path, stripping Meghan of her titles, severing her link to the crown, he will not just be cutting off his sister-in-law. He will be cutting directly against his brother's narrative. And that, more than anything, risks turning a private feud into a global explosion. But what happens when William finally confronts Harry about this? What words are spoken when the ghost of Diana stands between them like a wall? That is where we go next. Because William's decision doesn't just force Meghan into a corner, it forces Harry into an impossible choice. And his reaction will shock the world. Every story of conflict has a man trapped in the middle. For this one, that man is Prince Harry. On one side, his brother, the heir, the future king, the boy he once trusted more than anyone in the world. On the other side, his wife, the woman he swore to protect, the partner who promised freedom, the mother of his children. And between them, the ghost of a mother whose memory binds and divides in equal measure. Harry's dilemma isn't just political. It's personal, and it's tearing him apart. Let's begin with the obvious question. Where does Harry's loyalty lie? With blood or with love? With duty or with freedom? For years, Harry has told the world his answer. Meghan comes first. He walked away from royal life, sacrificed his military titles, distanced himself from the institution that shaped him, all in the name of building a new life with her. But when whispers reached him that William was preparing to strip Meghan of her titles, something inside Harry cracked. Because this wasn't just a royal move. This was personal. This was his brother, the man he once called his best friend, turning against the woman he loves. Imagine Harry's fury. The phone call where he first hears the news. His voice rising, his words sharp. She's my wife, William. How dare you? But behind the anger, there's something else. Fear. Fear that William's decision won't just damage Meghan's reputation, but expose the fragility of Harry's own choice. After all, if Meghan is stripped of her titles, what does that say about his decision to leave? Does it make him complicit in weakening the monarchy? Does it mark him forever as the prince who lost everything? Now picture Harry pacing in his Montecito home, his fists clenched, Meghan urging him to stay calm. "We'll fight this," she says, her voice steady. But Harry's not calm. He's torn in two. Because deep down, no matter how much he insists otherwise, part of him still longs for reconciliation with his brother. Part of him still misses the days when it was just the two of them, fighting side by side against the world. And now, those days feel like a distant memory, buried under layers of resentment, betrayal, and PR wars. Here's the irony that makes Harry's dilemma so cruel. His loyalty to Meghan demands he fight William, but his love for his brother makes him hesitate. He doesn't want to burn the last bridge completely. He doesn't want to be remembered as the man who turned the brothers' bond into rubble. And yet, by doing nothing, he risks losing Meghan's trust. Can you see the trap? Defend Meghan, lose William. Protect William, lose Meghan. Do nothing, lose both. A dilemma with no clean exit. And then there's Diana. Always Diana. Harry invokes her often, framing his decision to leave royal life as an act she would have supported. "I won't let history repeat itself," he says. But William, as we've seen, sees this differently. To him, Diana's legacy is being misused. And so, once again, Diana's ghost becomes a dividing wall. For Harry, Diana justifies his rebellion. For William, Diana demands his protection of the monarchy. The mother they both adored has become the very thing pulling them further apart. Inside Harry's private circle, smaller, less experienced than William's, the advice is blunt. Fight back publicly. Get ahead of the narrative. Remind people who you are. Meghan's PR team agrees, pushing for interviews, features, counter-narratives. But Harry hesitates. He knows every interview makes reconciliation harder. Every headline widens the gulf. Every soundbite drives another wedge between him and his brother. And so he wavers, caught in the paralysis of love, loyalty, and loss. But here's the heartbreaking part. William isn't waiting. While Harry debates, William moves. Meetings are held, strategies drafted, legal language explored. Harry is left reacting, not leading. And for a man who already feels powerless, that loss of control eats away at him. He snaps at Meghan. He broods in silence. He replays arguments with William in his head, whispering comebacks he never got to say. It's the portrait of a man at war with himself and losing. Now pause here and imagine. If you were Harry, what would you do? Would you stand by your wife, even if it meant severing your last tie to your brother? Or would you risk Meghan's fury by trying to broker peace? This is the impossible choice Harry faces. And it's not just a personal dilemma, it's a global spectacle. Every move he makes will be dissected, debated, weaponized. There is no safe choice. Only the lesser of two losses. And then, the breaking point arrives. William and Harry meet privately. No cameras, no staff, no scripts. Just two brothers in a room, the air thick with unspoken anger. William explains his stance. Calm, firm, resolute. The monarchy cannot be a brand, Harry. Titles must mean something. Harry fires back, his voice trembling. "She's my wife. You're not just attacking her. You're attacking me." The silence that follows is heavy. Two brothers, once inseparable, now strangers divided by a woman and a crown. And in that silence, Harry realizes something devastating. There is no middle ground. The choice has to be made. But before Harry can decide how far he's willing to go, Meghan makes her own move. A move that will force Harry's hand, whether he's ready or not. A move that transforms his private dilemma into a public crisis. What was Meghan's move? And why did it shatter the last hope of reconciliation between the brothers? That's where we go next. Because Harry's dilemma may have been painful, but Meghan's next step turned it into war. And once it began, there was no going back. The monarchy doesn't move quickly. It never has. Its power is built on ritual, on patience, on centuries of precedent. And yet, within the walls of Buckingham and Kensington, something unusual was happening. The pace was accelerating. Meetings were being called at odd hours. Advisors shuffled nervously through corridors with papers clutched to their chests. And at the center of it all stood Prince William, uncharacteristically impatient, demanding answers to questions that most of his forebears would have preferred to ignore. Could the monarchy stop Meghan Markle from using her royal titles? And if so, how? Picture the scene. A long mahogany table in a private palace chamber, the kind of room where history feels alive in the paneling, where portraits of past monarchs stare down from the walls. Around the table sit senior advisors, legal experts, communications chiefs, and family representatives. They are seasoned in the business of monarchy, men and women who have navigated scandals, wars, abdications. Yet even they know that this crisis is different. This isn't about a rogue cousin or a tabloid embarrassment. This is about Meghan Markle, a global celebrity, wielding the power of a royal title like a weapon against the very institution that gave it to her. William begins with a calm but forceful tone. Every day she calls herself Duchess, she weakens us. This isn't just about her reputation. It's about ours. It's about the survival of the monarchy. His words echo in the room, undeniable in their weight. Some nod in agreement. Others shift uneasily in their seats. They know he's right, and yet they also know the risks. Because stripping titles is not a quiet affair. It is a declaration, and declarations create storms. The legal team is the first to speak. They outline the process. Parliament could be involved. Acts of royal prerogative might be necessary. Precedents could be dusted off from centuries past. The last time titles were revoked under such scrutiny, it was tied to war or treason. Meghan's case, they warn, is more complex. She has not broken the law, one lawyer reminds the room. Her crime is one of perception, of exploitation. The question is whether perception is enough to act. William doesn't flinch. Perception is everything, he replies. If the public believes we are for sale, then what is left? Then comes the communications team, the palace spin doctors. They speak in measured tones, calculating the optics. If we strip her titles, she will play the victim. She will call it bullying. She will call it revenge. Her narrative will dominate the press cycle for months. Are we prepared for that? William leans forward. She already plays the victim. She already dominates. We gain nothing by silence. His voice is sharp, unyielding. The advisors exchange glances. This is not the cautious William they are used to. This is a man transformed. A man who has decided that half measures will not save the monarchy. But here's the tension. Not everyone in the room agrees. Some urge patience, arguing that Meghan's brand will eventually burn itself out. Hollywood is fickle, one advisor suggests. Today she's relevant. Tomorrow she's forgotten. Why give her more power by making her a martyr? William shakes his head. She is not fading. She is growing. Every headline, every interview, every deal, it all leans on the Duchess name. If we wait, we lose. If we act, at least we fight. His conviction is undeniable. But conviction alone doesn't win battles. Strategy does. Kate, as always, plays her role with quiet precision. She doesn't dominate the conversation, but when she speaks, the room listens. We cannot think only of today, she says. This decision will shape how people see us in 10, 20, 50 years. If we let this stand, our children will inherit a monarchy diminished. If we act, yes, we risk backlash. But we also show strength. Her words settle over the table like a calm fog. Even the most cautious advisors can't ignore the truth in them. And then comes the most explosive suggestion of all. One advisor, bold enough to voice what others only whisper, leans in and says, "Perhaps we don't need to strip the titles officially. Perhaps we make them meaningless. Freeze them in practice. Remove the funding. Remove the recognition. Let her call herself Duchess. But let the world see it means nothing." The room murmurs. It's a clever compromise. But William isn't satisfied. That is not enough, he insists. If a title exists, it carries weight. It must be removed. Not watered down. Removed. His words leave no room for doubt. He wants a clean break. Now, let's pause here and ask the question. If you were in that room, what would you advise? Would you risk a global backlash to strip Meghan's titles? Or would you play the long game, hoping her brand burns out on its own? This is the debate that consumes William's private circle, a debate with no easy answers. And yet, the clock is ticking. Every day Meghan speaks as the Duchess of Sussex, the monarchy's silence looks weaker. As the meeting drags on, another challenge emerges. Leaks. Someone in the palace is talking. Whispers of William's intentions are already making their way into the press. And Meghan's team is using those whispers to their advantage, framing her as a target of royal cruelty. William's jaw tightens as an aide briefs him on the headlines. They're painting you as jealous, insecure, threatened, the aide says. William doesn't respond. He doesn't need to. His silence says everything. The leaks confirm his worst fear. Even inside the palace, loyalty cannot be guaranteed. By the end of the meeting, no final decision is made. The legal team needs more time. The communications team wants more polling. But William has heard enough. He rises, his voice low but steady. Prepare for every outcome. Legal, political, public. We will not be caught off guard. This ends, one way or another. The advisors nod, some reluctantly, some eagerly. They know they've just been handed a directive. The machinery of the monarchy, slow as it is, has been set in motion. But here's where the tension sharpens. While William's team prepares strategies, Meghan's team prepares headlines. And both sides know the storm is coming. The palace may have centuries of tradition behind it, but Meghan has the speed, the spotlight, and the sympathy of millions. This isn't just a family feud anymore. It's a battle of narratives, a clash between an ancient institution and a modern PR empire. And just when the palace thinks it can control the narrative, the public intervenes. Polls begin to shift. Commentators debate loudly on television. Social media erupts with hashtags, some calling for Meghan to be stripped, others accusing the monarchy of cruelty. The battlefield has expanded far beyond the palace walls. William is no longer just fighting Meghan. He is fighting the court of public opinion.